Hello and welcome to Stamps Old World UK, the YouTube channel where we dive deep into the stories behind some of the world's most fascinating and historic stamps. Today, we're exploring a truly iconic British stamp that has caught the attention of collectors for nearly a century, the 1924 British Empire Exhibition 1 stamp. This little red stamp might look simple at first glance, but it holds a powerful story from the heart of the British Empire, filled with history, pride, and symbolic meaning. If you're a stamp lover, history enthusiast, or simply curious about the hidden value behind old postage, this is a video you don't want to miss. The British Empire Exhibition was a grand event held in Wembley, London, from April 1924 to October 1925. It was one of the largest exhibitions ever staged at the time, designed to showcase the power, culture, and unity of the British Empire. Over 56 countries and territories participated in this incredible display of empire-wide innovation and cooperation. The British Post Office wanted to commemorate this event in a special way, and that's where the now famous stamps come in. Two special stamps were released in 1924, one in red for 1 penny and another in brown for 1 penny and a half. Today, we're focusing on the red 1 penny version from the very first issue in 1924. The stamp itself is a brilliant piece of artwork and design. Printed in bright red ink, it features a proud and majestic lion standing with strength and confidence, symbolizing the courage and dominance of the British Empire. Next to the lion is a finely engraved portrait of King George V, facing right, set within an oval frame with a crown above and surrounded by laurel leaves, a traditional symbol of victory and honor. The words, British Empire Exhibition 1924, are boldly printed at the top, giving it a commemorative touch. And at the bottom, it simply reads 1 penny, which was the cost of postage for sending a letter within the UK at the time. This stamp was designed by Harold Nelson and printed by Waterlow and Sons, a trusted name in British stamp production. The detail and symbolism captured in this small rectangle of paper reflect the national pride and global presence of the empire during that time. Now, let's talk about what many of you are probably wondering: how much is this stamp worth today? In today's stamp market, the 1924 British Empire Exhibition 1 penny stamp can vary in value depending on its condition, rarity, and whether it has been used or remains in mint condition. A used version, one that has been postmarked or cancelled after being mailed, is generally worth between $1 and $5. These are quite common, as millions were printed, and they can often be found in basic stamp collections. However, the value can increase if the postmark is especially clear or interesting, such as if it was postmarked during the actual exhibition at Wembley. If you have a mint condition version, meaning the stamp was never used and still has its original gum on the back, the value goes up. A mint copy can sell for anywhere from $5 to $20. Stamps in very fine or superb condition, with excellent centering, fresh color, and no damage, can be valued higher by collectors. Sometimes these stamps are found in blocks of 4 or still attached to exhibition covers, and those can command even greater prices. A block of 4 mint stamps, for example, can sell for over $40 or $50, especially if well preserved. Rare varieties, such as printing errors or color shifts, can be even more valuable, sometimes reaching prices above $100, though these are much harder to find. The true value of this stamp, however, isn't just in the dollars it's worth, it's in the rich story it tells. This stamp is a historical artifact from a time when the British Empire was vast and influential, and when stamps were more than just tools for mailing letters. They were miniature posters promoting national pride and imperial unity. Holding a stamp like this is like holding a piece of a bygone era, when exhibitions drew millions of visitors and the world's largest empire celebrated its achievements with grandeur and style. That's what makes it so appealing to stamp collectors and history buffs alike. For those of you interested in collecting or already building your stamp album, the 1924 British Empire Exhibition stamp is an excellent piece to include. It's not too rare or expensive, which makes it easy to find and affordable, even for beginners. Yet it carries a depth of meaning and history that makes it a centerpiece in any collection. Collectors often seek to obtain both the 1924 and the 1925 versions to complete a set, and some go even further to collect postmarks from the actual exhibition or special souvenir sheets issued during the event. It's a fun and rewarding challenge that adds historical depth to your collection. When collecting stamps like this, always remember that condition matters greatly. A stamp that looks clean, with strong color, perfect perforations, and no bends, stains, or damage is always worth more than one that's worn or damaged. Use stamp tongs or tweezers to handle your stamps to avoid fingerprints or tears, and store them in a proper stamp album or acid-free stock book to keep them safe from humidity, sunlight, and dust. Before we wrap up, let me encourage you to keep exploring and appreciating these little pieces of history. Stamps may be small, but they are full of stories, symbolism, and connections to the past. Whether you're collecting British stamps, Commonwealth issues, or worldwide pieces, each stamp is like a tiny time machine. And here at Stamps Old World UK, we're on a mission to bring those stories to life. Next up, the 1924 British Empire Exhibition 1-penny stamp, and the classic King Edward VII 1-penny red. These two stamps, separated by just a couple of decades, together tell the story of a transitioning empire, changing monarchs, and a world that was on the brink of modernity. Let's begin with the 1924 British Empire Exhibition 1-penny stamp, a striking red design that immediately captures the eye. This stamp was issued to celebrate one of the most ambitious events of the early 20th century, the British Empire Exhibition held at Wembley in 1924. At that time, the British Empire was at its height, stretching across the globe, with colonies, protectorates, and dominions covering nearly a quarter of the world's population. The exhibition was a grand showcase of the empire's wealth, diversity, and industrial power. And to commemorate such a vast and symbolic event, a special set of stamps was released, including this beautiful red 1-penny stamp. In the center of the stamp, a proud lion, symbol of strength and courage, stands next to an elegant portrait of King George V, who was then the reigning monarch. His profile is framed with laurels and a crown, emphasizing royal dignity. The words, British Empire Exhibition 1924, are boldly printed above, and 1 penny is marked below in large, clear text. The entire design is deeply patriotic and carefully crafted to reflect both imperial grandeur and artistic precision. This stamp was used widely during the time of the exhibition. Millions were printed, yet collectors today still treasure them, especially when they are in pristine condition. A used version with clear postmarks generally sells for around $1 to $3, depending on clarity and condition. But mint condition examples, those never used and still with original gum, can fetch $10 to $30, and in rare cases with exceptional quality or printing errors, prices can rise even higher. Stamps from the 1925 reissue are even more desirable among collectors. And what makes this stamp truly special is not just its rarity or age, it's the way it transports us back to an era when the empire saw itself as the center of the world, and London as its shining heart. Holding this stamp in your hand is like holding a ticket to the grandest show the empire ever staged. Now, let's shift focus to another red stamp, smaller in size, but equally rich in history, the 1-penny stamp featuring King Edward VII. This stamp was first issued in the early 1900s, after the death of Queen Victoria, who had reigned for over 60 years. With her passing in 1901, her son Edward took the throne, becoming King Edward VII. His reign marked the beginning of a new royal chapter. The 1-penny stamp bearing his image was part of the new definitive series issued to reflect the change in monarch. In this stamp, we see a clean side profile portrait of the king, with a full beard, facing left. It's surrounded by ornate laurel leaves, symbolizing victory and honor, and topped with a regal crown. The bold words 1 penny are displayed at the bottom, with the word postage framing the top. This stamp may appear simple, but it's incredibly significant in British postal history. King Edward VII ruled for just 9 years, from 1901 to 1910, and as such, far fewer stamps were produced in his image compared to his mother or his son, King George V. Because of the shorter reign, the Edwardian 1-penny stamps are viewed as transitional, bridging the long Victorian era with the modern developments of the early 20th century. Millions of these stamps were used for everyday mail, but those that survive today in good shape are still very collectible. A used Edward VII 1-penny red is typically worth $1 to $3, similar to the 1924 exhibition stamp. However, a mint condition example can be worth more, $10 to $40, depending on centering, gum condition, and color brightness. Stamps with rare postmarks, plate variations, or print errors can command $50 to $150 or more, especially if authenticated. What's so fascinating about both of these stamps, the exhibition stamp and the Edward VII 1-penny red, is that they come from a time when the postage stamp was much more than a way to send letters. These stamps were national symbols. They were statements of power, culture, and change. The Edwardian stamp came at a time of royal transition and societal modernization. The 1924 exhibition stamp came at a time when the British Empire was trying to hold on to its global status while the world was rapidly changing after World War I. Owning these stamps means owning pieces of history. They're not just for collectors, but for anyone who loves storytelling, heritage, and beautiful design. In today's market, the combined value of these stamps depends on condition, rarity, and uniqueness. If you're lucky enough to find either of these in mint, well-centered condition, you could have a valuable item on your hands. Even a modest example, though, offers enormous historical and educational value. Many dealers and collectors are still actively buying and trading these stamps in 2024, both online and at traditional stamp fairs. They're great for both beginners and experienced philatelists. So if you come across one of these red stamps in an old box, album, or collection, don't overlook it. Check the corners, the back, and the color. A small difference can mean a big difference in value. You might just be holding a treasure, or at the very least, a fascinating chapter of British and imperial history. Next up, the Edward VII 1-penny red. This stamp might look simple at first glance, but it's full of royal legacy, design beauty, and collector value. And if you're wondering how much it's worth in today's dollars, stay with me, we'll cover everything from history to market trends. Let's start with the background. The 1-penny red stamp featuring King Edward VII was introduced in 1902, right after the end of Queen Victoria's incredible 63-year reign. For stamp collectors at the time, this was the beginning of a new era, not just for the monarchy, but for postal design. Edward VII was already 60 years old when he became king. He had waited a long time to take the throne, and his image was now appearing on everything from coins to postage stamps. His portrait on the stamp is shown in profile, facing left, much like his mother's. But the styling is distinctly Edwardian. You can see the influence of classical design with the oak leaves, laurel branches, and the royal crown at the top of the frame. At the bottom, in bold capital letters, it says 1 penny, the standard cost to send a letter within the UK at the time. It also says postage and revenue at the top, which meant it could be used not just for regular mail but also for official tax or legal documents. That dual use added to its practicality, and it also makes the stamp more interesting to collectors today. Now, let's talk about quantity. These stamps were printed by the millions, they were literally everywhere. But that doesn't mean they aren't valuable. Like many things in the collecting world, condition is everything. So how much can this stamp be worth in today's dollars? Let's break it down. A used version, meaning a stamp that was actually sent through the mail and has a cancellation mark, usually sells for $1 to $5, depending on its appearance. If the cancellation is light and the design is still clean and centered, it might be on the higher end. Now, a mint condition stamp, that's one that was never used and still has its original gum on the back, can be worth significantly more. Prices for mint condition Edward VII 1-penny reds typically range from $10 to $50. And yes, this value can rise if the stamp is particularly well-centered or part of a rare printing. But here's where things get even more exciting. Some rare varieties of this stamp, such as color variations, plate errors, or stamps printed on unusual paper, have sold for hundreds or even over $1,000 at auction. These are often items that were never intended to be released or were printed in limited batches. Serious collectors keep their eyes out for those. So, you might ask, why do collectors still care about a stamp that's over 100 years old and was printed in such huge numbers? The answer is simple: historical connection and design beauty. This stamp represents the transition from the long Victorian era to the modern 20th century. It's a symbol of change, of tradition meeting progress. Collectors love the detail in the engraving, the story of the Edwardian age, and the accessibility of this stamp for new hobbyists. Plus, because there are so many subtle differences in printing, such as the watermark, color tone, and paper thickness, there's always something new to discover. It's a stamp that keeps on giving, even after more than a century. And here's a little tip for beginners: if you're thinking of starting your own collection, the Edward VII 1-penny red is a fantastic place to start. It's affordable, widely available, and gives you a great introduction to early 20th century British philately. You can find them at local stamp fairs, online marketplaces like eBay, or even in old family collections. Always check the condition, look at the back for gum and watermarks, and try to get examples with light cancels or no tears. If you already own this stamp, take a closer look, you might have a valuable variation sitting in your album. Now before we wrap up, let's quickly look at the market today. The global stamp market has seen renewed interest over the past few years. Collectors from the US, Europe, and Asia are investing more in historical stamps, especially royal-themed or pre-World War I issues. While prices for common examples stay modest, the demand for clean, high-grade stamps is rising. So if you have a good copy of the Edward VII 1 red, it's not just a collector's piece, it could be an appreciating asset. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history, value, and beauty of the Edward VII 1 red stamp, please give this video a like, subscribe to Stamps Old World UK, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next stamp story. We cover everything from penny blacks to rare colonial issues, and we'd love to hear what stamp you want us to feature next. Have you seen this stamp before? Do you own it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're just getting started with collecting, feel free to ask any questions. This is a friendly community and we're all here to learn. Next up, the Trinidad 1 seated Britannia stamp. This beautifully designed stamp is more than just a piece of postal history, it's a symbol of empire, identity, and artistic craftsmanship. And yes, we'll also talk about what it's worth in today's collector market, in real dollars. Let's begin with the basics. This stamp was issued in the late 1800s by the colony of Trinidad, before it became part of the modern-day nation of Trinidad and Tobago. At the time, Trinidad was under British rule, and its postal system was part of the larger British Empire network. The design of this stamp features the iconic figure of Britannia, seated and holding a trident in one hand and a set of scales in the other. Britannia represents British strength, authority, and justice, a figure that appeared on coins, stamps, and official seals across the empire. You'll notice the words postage and revenue on either side of the stamp. That means it could be used both for sending mail and for paying official government fees, taxes, or legal documents, a practical and common feature in colonial stamps. At the top of the stamp is the word Trinidad, clearly marking the territory of issue. And at the bottom, in bold red or carmine letters, we see the value, 1 penny. This was the standard local postage rate for letters at the time. Now, let's talk about the printing. These stamps were usually printed by De La Rue, one of the most respected British security printers of the 19th and 20th centuries. Known for their attention to detail and high-quality engraving, De La Rue produced stamps for colonies all across the globe. The colors, paper types, and watermarks may vary slightly depending on the year and batch, which makes collecting even more interesting. Even though many of these stamps were printed and used, their survival in good condition, especially in used, is less common today. That brings us to the big question: how much is this stamp worth today? If you have a used copy, like the one shown in this video with a clear postal cancel, the typical market price in 2025 USD is around $2 to $10, depending on the stamp's condition, clarity, and the neatness of the cancellation mark. If you find a mint condition version, meaning in used and still with the original gum on the back, prices go up. A nice mint copy can fetch $30 to $75, especially if the stamp is well centered, with no thins, tears, or fading. And then there are the rare varieties. Some versions of this stamp were printed with inverted watermarks, shifted colors, or paper errors. These can be worth over $100 to serious collectors, sometimes even more if it's a confirmed rarity or plate variety. But here's the thing, it's not just about the money. What makes this stamp truly valuable is its connection to history. It tells the story of colonial Trinidad, of how the British Empire operated, and how even small islands had their own postal identity. Through stamps like this, we get a glimpse into the daily life, government systems, and artistic styles of the time. For collectors of British Commonwealth stamps, the Trinidad 1 is a must-have. It's affordable, rich in symbolism, and a great example of late Victorian and early Edwardian colonial design. And if you're just starting out as a collector, this stamp is a great place to begin. It's not too rare, not too expensive, and yet it gives you a direct connection to a fascinating era. You can build a collection around British colonial stamps, focusing on the Caribbean, Africa, or the Pacific, and the Britannia series is an excellent starting point. One tip when buying: always check the back of the stamp for hinge marks or gum condition, and if possible, look for a watermark. These small details can affect the value more than you might think. Also, stamps with clear and light cancellations are usually more attractive to collectors than heavily marked ones. Now, as we wrap up, here's something to think about: how many hands did this stamp pass through? What letter did it carry? Was it part of someone's business, a love letter, or maybe an official government document? That's the beauty of stamp collecting. Every piece has a journey, and you get to uncover it. Thanks so much for watching Stamps Old World UK. If you enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories from the world of classic stamps. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. And let me know in the comments, do you have any stamps from Trinidad or other British colonies? I'd love to hear what's in your collection. Until next time, keep collecting, keep learning, and remember, every stamp has a story.